Hey there, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. Welcome to day 111 of our Get Your Goals annual challenge. This month we're focusing on the spiritual area, spiritual's up here, area and aspect of our life in a 9-part life framework. We're breaking it down each month and focusing on the goals and the things that we need to understand, the topics, the skills, strategies, tools that we can use to help us achieve the goals that we want to achieve in our life in that area. So this month we're focusing on spiritual well-being. And today's tool, and I'm going to talk about it every month, is something called the Lifeline exercise. I think I learned this when I worked in corporate America, probably at Procter & Gamble, and one of the trainings. One thing about my first job out of college at Procter & Gamble that was awesome is they had an incredible leadership and management development program. They are so good about, and I don't know if they still are, but they were when I worked there in the late 80s, bringing in the best leading edge trainers and educators to help us continue our education and be better leaders and better examples of what they wanted to have in the organization. It was part of their culture was continuous improvement and learning and growing. And that matched ideally with my core values. So I liked that as my first job. So this Lifeline exercise, all we do, if you remember back in social studies or history class, or even I think grade school, we experienced timelines. I know today they teach kids, all kinds of graphing and things that I didn't learn until college because the technology is so much better and we have so much more access to technology and computers and things for the kids nowadays. So they're learning how to do Pareto charts and all kinds of different charting and graphing things to look at data and understand it more. So the Lifeline exercise is one of those things as well. And it's just like a timeline where you start with the year of what you're looking at. So if it's history or our life, probably the day we're born. So the day I was born, March 12th, 1960. And then we go to the current year and then I always put an arrow continuing because I don't plan on having this be my last year here. And what we do is we plot out on the timeline, just like we do a historical timeline. If you're looking at a war or a major event in history, that's what we're doing with our life. We're looking at the major events, the major experiences that we had, and we're marking them on a timeline. I do that first, and then as we talk about each area and aspect of our life, I plot it on my timeline. This is just a sample one I did a couple of years ago as part of the Get Up and Go challenge. During the pandemic, I wanted to figure out how to keep moving, and so I started sharing tools and strategies and lessons learned and things that I'd acquired over the course of my 4 almost 5 decades in business, and sharing those with people so that we could all keep moving during a time that was just crazy and chaotic. So on this timeline then, our action item today is to think about the impact of these events on our spiritual growth or spiritual well-being. Now on my plot, I have to go probably, I have a few things spiritually. When I was younger, I was raised Catholic, I was confirmed, went to church, did all those things. But it really wasn't until I hit 50 that I actually intentionally started to think about and set goals and take action in the area of my spiritual well-being and my spiritual health and my spiritual growth. So I would consider myself a late spiritual bloomer, but I feel like I'm making up for lost time and lost ground. What we're going to do is we're going to look at this today. We're going to plot some things out. We're going to think about it. We're just going to share one thing that we notice, something, an aha, a pattern that we notice. I definitely have a pattern, right? We tend to have patterns in our life on a subconscious level that we don't really see. And so we're just going to share one thing that we see today as we plot our spiritual lifeline. All right, any questions about this? Ask. One of my favorite tools of all time. I do mine every year. You can do your timeline and your lifeline whenever you want, however you want. But especially since I've been doing the annual challenge, I plot it out at the beginning of the year. I look at it at the beginning of the year. And then each month that I'm focusing on a different area or aspect of my life, I plot out that area so I can look for patterns. I can look for what works for me. When I had physical challenges, for example, my spiritual, mental, emotional well-being all decreased as well. And so we see those patterns and we say, okay, if this impacts this, what can I do in the beginning to make sure that that doesn't happen? What can I do to take better care of myself? We're talking about self-care a lot last year and this year, and we're going to continue to. I guess we started talking about 6 years ago, and we're going to continue to. All right, ask if you need help. Otherwise, I will be with you tomorrow. Have fun with this. It's a great tool and exercise.